and welcome to the first episode of Season 2 of the Selective Mutism Help Home Educational Learning Program podcast. My name is Kelly, and I'm a parent of a child with selective mutism, and now I'm a BCBA specializing in supporting those with SM. This podcast is meant to provide general information about SM and is not meant to diagnose, treat, or be used in lieu of help from an SM specialist. This episode will be part one of a three-part conversation about fading in. I get asked a lot about how to do a fade in, so I thought this could be a great opportunity to share my strategy when it comes to fading in. Part one will be how to fade in with a child in their home. Part two will be fading in peers, and part three will be fading in at school. So I wanted to take you on a little journey with me as I kind of explain how I did a recent fade in with a new client. It was with a kindergartner. So one of the first questions parents often ask me is, what do we tell our kids? How do we explain that somebody's going to be coming to the home and working with them? And so, really, it depends on the age and depends on the child. So, in this situation, being that it was a younger kiddo, kindergarten, I wanted to make sure this was going to be brought up in a fun way, in a way that wasn't going to be super discouraging to the child. So, I luckily also have a kindergartner. And so, when I went to their home for the first time, I had brought maybe 3 or 4 different board games that I know my kiddo, who's a kindergartner, likes. And so I got there, I said, hey, your mom said that you're in kindergarten and I have a kindergartner, and I'm trying to plan the best game night for him, and I need to know which games that we should play. I want it to be a surprise, but I want to make sure that it's games that kindergartners actually like. So I was hoping I could get your help in letting me know which games I should have for game night. So I put my bag down and I said, go ahead and you can pick one of my games or you can play one of your own games. So so he went to the bag and I said, okay, but first I got to get some emails, which I did. I had to get some emails checked and written. So I said, I'm just going to be over here. I got to check some emails really quick. You guys get started and I'll come over in a little bit when I'm finished. So this gave them an opportunity, number one, for the little boy to choose a game. Choosing can be challenging for those with anxiety. And so by having this opportunity within the home and setting it up like, I need your help, he was ready to go. So he picked a Bluey Keepy Uppy game. So it's this little balloon that bounces around and you have to hit it up and try to knock over the other opponent's little tokens. So they were playing that, and as I was checking my emails, I would glance over and be like, oh, that does look so fun. I can't wait to finish my email so I can come and watch you guys play. I never asked any questions. I just was kind of observing out loud. And mom did a great job by, staying close to him and asking him questions and playing with his sister and brother. So it was very least anxiety provoking as possible. So again, I kind of just kept watching. And what I was watching for was his body language. Was he glancing over at me a lot? Was he rigid? Was he interacting? Was he using any form of verbal communication? Just kind of looking at that. And I noticed that he was engaged in the game. He was whispering to mom. I could see that his anxiety was probably there, but it wasn't at a point where he was frozen by any means. So I let them play. And then when I finished my emails, I said, oh my gosh, okay, I'm all done. I can't wait to see you guys play this game. It sounds like you're having a lot of fun. And so then I came and I sat at the table with him. And what was great with this family as well is he had his older sibling there. And so that can take a lot of pressure off of the child with anxiety because now the attention is onto somebody else. And so what I started doing was when his sibling would speak, I would repeat what she said or just give some positive feedback to what she was saying, like, oh, wow, you're right, you did get that one down, or something like that, so that he could see my reaction when somebody did speak. So again, I was labeling what I was seeing. I was having a lot of fun with them. And then once that game was over, he wanted to show me his fishing game. So again, wasn't verbal, but he had whispered to mom the next game he wanted to play. I'm like, oh, this sounds great. So it's one of those games where the little fish mouths open and then you have the fishing pole and they close the mouth on the fishing pole and you take them out. That was the game, and this was his favorite game. And so during this game was when he started vocalizing with laughter or frustration, like, oh, those types of sounds. And so I would imitate those as well, like, oh man, you almost got it, or wow, that one felt funny. Like, that was so funny to see, just kind of showing my support and reinforcement with any verbalizations he was making, whether or not it was actual words. So, all of this is to, again, reduce that anxiety. If we can get their anxiety reduced, speech is more likely to happen. So we eventually, moved on to some other games, and then they wanted to show me their game cupboard. I'm like, oh, great! I wonder what games you have. Again, not asking what games do you have. It's I wonder. I wonder what games you have. I wonder if they're the same as mine. If you have any ones that are the same or different. So we went over to their game cupboard and looked at their games. And then another game that we played that I had brought was The Floor is Lava. So if you're not familiar with this game, think about, again, those little kiddos that play The Floor is Lava on your furniture. This is on the floor, so your kids aren't jumping from couch to couch. But you put down these little colored tiles along the floor, and there's a big giant spinner. So you spin the spinner, and if it lands on blue, you have to go from your current color to the closest blue tile without touching the ground. Some of the squares have question marks on them, so that's when you get to pick a card and it will tell you to act something out or do something. And so this game was a huge hit. So I had the kiddos make the little path on the floor, and I started with the spinner, and I would say the color, okay, blue, and they would move to blue, and okay, yellow, it'd spin again. And then I started having the sister spin the spinner, and she would say the colors. And then, okay, now it's your turn, and so I'd give it to the little boy, and he would spin the spinner, and he said the color. So right there, we were able to get purposeful speech without, I don't want to say without trying, but it was very natural. It was a natural part of this game. The anxiety was low. This was a big movement game. It was exciting. So he was able to spin that spinner and say the color. So that was a huge first step into, again, letting him know that it's okay to use his voice in front of me. And so we just kept playing that game. He did a great job with picking the card when he landed on question marks and acting out all the silly things. Some were like big arm circles or pretend you're kicking a soccer ball, all sorts of different ones. And he did every single one. Again, he was saying the colors when they were spun. And then we cleaned up the game. And there was a couple other things he wanted to show me in his game cabinet. And so he had, I don't know if it was like a Go Fish type game, but there were cards that had different bugs on them. So there's like a mosquito and a spider. And as he was showing me the cards, I'm like, ugh, mosquitoes. Oh, I don't like mosquitoes. They're just, ugh, I don't like them around. I'm glad there's not many down here. And then we got to a spider card, and he said, there's a spider at my aunt's house. And so he initiated conversation based on this card. I'm like, oh, wow, a spider at your aunt's house? That sounds really scary. Were you scared? And he's like, no, I wasn't scared. So we started having now back and forth conversation. Again, I was following his lead. I was using these fun games to help lower the anxiety, and it allowed him to open up and spontaneously tell me a story. And then he picked out a little, it was like a bee game. He's like, I really like this bee game. I'm like, oh, that looks so fun. Maybe next time, maybe I can come back again and you can show me this game, and maybe it's something my son will like for our game night. What do you think about that? And he's like, yeah. So that was kind of our first fade-in session. I was there for probably about an hour. which seemed to be a great amount of time. Again, I slowly introduced myself into their little world of playing games. I started imitating what the sister was saying and what any noises he was making. I gave him the power to choose the games. Again, I was able to find a game that doesn't have to do with talking, like something like Guess Who, but it was a game that we could have him use his words for things he knows, like colors. So having that spinner game and having him say the color was a great step into getting his voice out. And then again, as we're looking at other things around the house and giving him I wonder statements or sharing things about me that I like or dislike, gave him that opening to open up and share something with me. So it was a great first spade in session. Again, they don't always go that smooth, but I think the biggest part as a practitioner is watching the kiddos' body language, seeing if they are, looking over a lot with these wide eyes or hiding behind mom, or not engaging, is maybe backing out a little bit more. Like, oh, I gotta run to the bathroom. So sorry, you guys keep playing. I'll be back in a couple minutes. Giving them that extra space. So really just kind of watching and pushing in when it's appropriate and not going too fast with it. I think that's another part that sometimes we just want to get through it and get to this point. And I remember with our daughter, when we started fading in her psychologist back at the beginning, it just seems like there wasn't enough time between when my daughter and I were communicating with each other before the practitioner came over and sat with us. We just didn't have enough time for that anxiety to lower. So when she came over to sit by us, she shut down again. So again, I just thinking that we really need to be aware of how much time some of these kids need and being aware of their behavior and their body language and checking in different ways. So again, this was part one of the 3-part series. The next podcast episode, I will talk about how I faded in a peer, a same-aged peer. So this was somebody that this client did not know, and I worked on transitioning speech from me, or transferring speech from me to the peer. So that will be in the next episode. I hope you will check back when I release that one. Again, there's no real set times when I'll be releasing these episodes. I will try to do them at least once a month for you. But make sure you check out the Selective Mutism Help Facebook page. I also have a community of support page that allows community members to ask questions, get advice. I share a lot of my stories there as well about my journey with our daughter with SM. And also make sure that you check out the Selective Mutism International Conference that we have coming up. So I'll be co-hosting this conference with an amazing mom, music therapist, SM specialist from the United Kingdom, Joanna Turner. We are going to be hosting this conference in person in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. It'll be April 4th through the 6th. We will have both in-person and virtual registration options available. We do highly encourage to come in person. There really is nothing like being in a room of people who have the same questions as you, who want to help their child or help their student or help their relative, or however an SM person is affected in a person's life. We're all there together learning. This conference is going to be focusing on the physiological changes. So again, mentioning when I was doing this fade in of watching the body language, understanding that there's a lot more happening inside the person's body that I can't see, but knowing that there's a lot going on there, again, makes it easier to be patient with them. And so this conference is about what does SM, anxiety, trauma feel like from the inside, and how can that understanding help us heal and help us move forward and help us work through more of the anxiety and those feelings associated with it than maybe just the thoughts that come up with it. or come with the anxiety. So I hope you guys will check that out. I'll leave a link below for more information. And if anybody has listened to my podcast previously, you'll know that I'm a big fan of Dr. Stephen Porges, and he will be at that conference as well in person doing a 90-minute Q&A. So if you have questions on the nervous system, on the Safe and Sound protocol, on they have a new rest and restore protocol that's out. He has a book coming out. There's so many things that we can talk about in 90 minutes. I suggest and encourage you to come for that presentation and be part of that. So again, I'll leave some links in the comments below, and I look forward to talking with you again. Have a wonderful rest of your day.